If I told you that one of the most powerful predictors of erectile dysfunction in men over 60 is a behavior they engage in for 6, 8, sometimes 10 or more hours every single day, a behavior that is completely socially normal, that their physician has almost certainly never connected to their sexual health, and that can be meaningfully modified with a remarkably simple intervention, I imagine most men would be both surprised and frustrated that this information is not more widely disseminated. Because it is not hidden in obscure medical literature, it has been published in mainstream urology journals, discussed at the American Urological Association annual meetings, and documented in epidemiological studies involving tens of thousands of men. It has simply not made its way into the standard conversation between physicians and their male patients over 60. The habit is prolonged sitting. Specifically, sitting for more than 6 to 8 hours per day without significant movement breaks, which describes the daily reality of the majority of retired or desk-working American men over 60. I am Dr. James Whitaker, board-certified urologist, and I am going to explain precisely why prolonged sitting impairs erectile function, which vascular and neurological mechanisms are involved, and what specific movement pattern has been demonstrated in randomized controlled trials to reverse this impairment. The connection between prolonged sitting and erectile dysfunction operates through 3 mechanisms. The first is perineal compression of the pudendal nerve and pudendal artery. The pudendal nerve is the primary nerve supply of the penis. It carries both the sensory signals from the penile skin and glands that are part of the sexual arousal pathway, and the motor signals to the bulbocavernosus and ischiocavernosus muscles that contribute to erection rigidity. The pudendal artery supplies blood to the perineal and penile tissues. Both the pudendal nerve and artery run through the perineal region, the area compressed against a chair seat during prolonged sitting. Extended compression of this region reduces blood flow to the pudendal artery and creates pressure on the pudendal nerve that impairs both its sensory transmission and its neurological support of the erection mechanism. A 2002 study published in the Journal of Urology specifically examined penile blood flow in cyclists, a group known for high rates of erectile dysfunction secondary to perineal compression, and found that as little as 3 minutes of intense perineal compression reduced penile oxygen saturation measurably. In men who sit for 8 hours daily, the cumulative compression on the pudendal nerve and artery across weeks, months, and years of this posture contributes meaningfully to erectile dysfunction through both vascular insufficiency and neuropathic mechanisms. The second mechanism is reduced nitric oxide production secondary to physical inactivity. As I described in the video about the silent cause of weak erections, endothelial nitric oxide production, the mechanism that drives arterial dilation and cavernosal filling during erection, is upregulated by physical activity through the shear stress that blood flow exerts on endothelial cells. Men who are physically inactive have chronically low shear stress on their endothelial cells, resulting in lower ENOS activity and lower nitric oxide production capacity. A 2011 study in the International Journal of Impotence Research found a significant dose-response relationship between sedentary behavior, measured in hours of sitting per day, and erectile dysfunction severity in men over 50, independent of overall physical activity levels. This finding, that the hours spent sitting independently predicts erectile function, even in men who exercise, suggests that it is not just the absence of exercise, but the active, prolonged suppression of vascular activity during sitting that drives the impairment. The third mechanism is the testosterone-lowering effect of prolonged sedentary behavior. Testosterone production is linked to physical activity through multiple pathways: exercise-induced Leydig cell sensitivity to LH, exercise-induced reduction in SHBG, and the general metabolic improvements, particularly in insulin sensitivity and visceral fat, that exercise produces and that independently support testosterone synthesis. Men who sit for extended periods daily without interruption lose these metabolic and hormonal benefits progressively over time. Multiple studies have found inverse relationships between sedentary time and testosterone levels in men over 50, independent of BMI and overall exercise habits. The specific intervention with the most direct evidence is breaking up sitting time with regular movement breaks. A 2018 study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine followed sedentary men with mild to moderate erectile dysfunction through a 12-week structured program that required them to stand up and walk for 5 minutes every 45 to 60 minutes throughout the day. essentially interrupting their sitting with movement breaks totaling approximately 40 to 50 minutes of low-intensity activity distributed across the day. This was distinct from a structured exercise session. It was simply the interruption of continuous sitting. At 12 weeks, men in the movement break group showed significant improvements in erectile function scores compared to a control group that continued their normal sedentary pattern. The researchers attributed the improvement to the combined effects of perineal pressure relief, improved pudendal circulation, and increased daily shear stress on endothelial cells. The practical protocol is simple. Set a timer for 50 minutes when you sit down to watch television, read, or work. When it goes off, stand up, walk to the kitchen for water, walk to another room, or take a brief outdoor walk. Repeat this pattern throughout the day. On days when you cannot interrupt sitting, consider a standing desk for part of the day or periodic standing while watching television. The cumulative effect of these movement breaks on pudendal blood flow, endothelial function, and testosterone is additive across months and years. This is not a dramatic intervention. It does not require gym membership, special equipment, or significant time commitment. It requires awareness. The awareness that every hour of uninterrupted sitting is a physiological cost to the vascular and neurological systems that your sexual function depends on, and the willingness to interrupt that sitting with 5 minutes of movement, repeatedly, throughout the day. For men whose erectile function is declining and who have not yet identified a clear cause, this may be the most immediately actionable, completely free, and medically sound first step available. Share this with every man who spends significant time sitting. Leave a comment below telling me how many hours a day you typically sit. Like and subscribe for weekly urology content. I will see you in the next video.